Hello everyone, my name is Devin. Today's date is June 6, 2026, and for this video, I'll be analyzing a malfunction on a Rossi single barrel break action shotgun.
Are you there for 200, sir?
For 0 for it all.
Now, to translate the customer's complaint, the customer is describing that there is a failure to eject condition on a Rossi pattern single shot break action shotgun. After firing, the customer says the spent hole is being lifted or pulled partially out of the chamber as the action is opened. So the extraction is at least partially occurring. However, the ejector is not throwing the spent hole clear of the firearm like it previously did. The customer states that the shell pops early, suggests that the ejector may be tripping too soon during the opening cycle. Instead of the hole being supported and ejected at the proper point, it appears to release early and catch against the receiver area before clearing the action. Because the problem is happening almost every time, this points more towards a mechanical issue with the ejector timing, ejector trip surface, extractor or ejector fit, wear, damage, or debris rather than a random ammunition issue. I would explain to the customer that the shotgun appears to be extracting the fired hole, but it is not ejecting correctly during the ejection cycle. The most likely concern is with the ejector system or the timing surfaces that control the hole when it is kicked out. Now, before doing any inspections, I would make sure that the firearm is completely safe. Since this is a single shot break action shotgun, there is no detachable magazine or a tube magazine to clear. I would point the firearm in a safe direction, open the action, and visually and physically check the chamber. I would also inspect the barrel from the chamber end to make sure that there's no obstruction, like a stuck wad, dirt, debris, or a separated hole section. If there was any doubt, I would use a bore light and a cleaning rod to verify the bore is clear. Before troubleshooting the ejection issue, I would also inspect for serious damage. I would look for cracks in the receiver, hinge area, locking lugs, your barrel lugs, breech face, and your forearm iron. I would also check that the action locks up tightly and that the barrel is not too loose on the hinge pin. Any major structural damage would need to be addressed before function testing. Now, the firearm is a single shot break action shotgun, so the most likely failure type is a failure to eject, not a complete failure to extract. The customer stated that their shell comes loose from the chamber, so the extractor or ejector is moving the hole at least part of the way. The problem is that the hole does not kick clear of the firearm. Now, to verify that complaint, I would first perform a safety manual functions test using a dummy shell or a spent hole, not live ammunition. I would open and close the action slowly while watching the extractor or ejector movement. I would look for when the ejector trips, how far the hole moves forward, and whether it loses support before clearing the receiver. I would choose this test first because the complaint is about the mechanical timing of the action during opening, and a visual functions test tells me more about the ejector timing than jumping straight into headspace gauges. Different tests could give different results. A slow manual opening may show the exact point where the ejector trips early. A faster opening may make the problem look worse or better depending on the spring's force. Testing with several spent holes or dummy rounds may show whether the issue is consistent or only happening with certain brands. But if it happens almost every time, that strongly suggests that there is a mechanical problem. The leading issue that I would suspect is a worn ejector tip. On the brake action shotgun, the ejector usually works through a mechanical trip surface as the barrel pivots open. If that surface is worn, damaged, dirty, or out of position, the ejector can release too early or too late. Now, the customer specifically said that the shells pop early. This is an important clue. If the ejector releases too early, the hole may not have enough clearance to exit the firearm cleanly, so it can catch the inside of the receiver area. The most suspect parts would be the ejector and the extractor hook, ejector spring, or the ejector trip surfaces. If my diagnosis is correct, I would explain it to the customer like this. Your shotgun is pulling the fired shell loose from the chamber, so it is not a basic extraction failure. The issue is that the ejector is releasing the hole at the wrong point in the opening cycle. Because it trips early, the shell starts to kick out before it has enough clearance, and that is why it catches in the receiver area instead of clearing the gun. For the repair, I would clean and inspect the ejector assembly first, and if debris or fouling is the cause of the issue, I would correct that and then retest. If I found wear, damage, or incorrect contact points, I would repair, adjust, or replace the affected ejector or trip components according to the correct procedures for that firearm. To verify the repair, I would functions test the shotgun repeatedly with dummy rounds, check that the hole stays controlled during the opening and ejects clearly at the proper point. After that, if appropriate and safe, I would live test fire the shotgun to confirm the repairs under real operating conditions. The forum post contains some good observations, but it also has several technical inaccuracies that I found. The 5 inaccurate statements that I would clarify here are: this is inaccurate because the customer says that the shell comes loose from the chamber. That means the extraction is at least partially happening. The main problem is that the hole doesn't kick fully clear of the firearm after firing. So the better classification is a failure to eject or an incomplete ejection, rather than just a primary failure to extract. This is inaccurate because the customer's wording points more towards an ejector timing problem. The shell is not just slipping off the extractor randomly. The customer says it pops early and catches inside of the shotgun. That suggests that the ejector is tripping too soon in the opening cycle. This is inaccurate because a problem that happens almost every time usually points more towards a repeatable mechanical issue. Ammunition can also cause extraction problems, especially if the holes are swollen or damaged. But the customer says that the gun used to kick shells out and now it doesn't. That pattern suggests wear, debris, damage, or a timing issue with the ejector system. Now this one is inaccurate because the complaint is about the ejection cycle on a break action shotgun. A better first test would be a safe function test with dummy rounds, while observing that the extractor and ejector is moving. Headspace can matter, but it is not the most efficient first test for a shell that is already coming loose from the chamber, but failing to fully eject from the firearm. This is inaccurate because ejection timing is mainly controlled by the ejector trip system. Spring tension can affect how strong the ejection is, but the timing of when the ejector releases is controlled by the mechanical trip surfaces. To summarize, the customer is describing a failure to eject condition on their Rossi single shot break action shotgun. The shell is being extracted at least partially, but the ejector appears to be tripping too early and causing the hole to catch inside of the receiver area. My diagnostic process would start with safety, then a visual inspection, then dummy round function testing, followed by a detailed inspection of the ejector, extractor spring, and any friction surfaces. Once repaired, I would verify the shotgun by repeated function testing and, if appropriate, live fire testing. And with that, thank you for watching.